Hey there, welcome to Two and a Half Therapists, a podcast where we talk about geeky stuff, but also stuff around psychology and just interesting stuff that sort of pops into our minds, and we choose a topic to discuss about. Today, we were thinking about, because the next couple of days is Halloween, and that is quite a big event around the world, especially in the States. Not so much in New Zealand, but it's still sort of celebrated. And I thought to sort of go back into sort of the Halloween roots. If the audience listener doesn't know too much about Halloween, it's good to know what's this ancient tradition sort of originated from. So if we can look back into Halloween and why we celebrate that is we can find that the roots go back to Celts, so the Celtic tradition. And the Celtic tribes divided the year into two. So there was a light year and there's a dark year. So the dark year would be, so the light year would be the year of harvest, where they would spend all the energy and their basically manpower to get their food and harvest their food. And the second half was the dark half. And that reminds me a bit of like yin yang, the anima and animus, if you know a bit about Carl Jung. And this festival, this celebration, was called Samhain, which also, someone, if you say it fast enough, sometimes it sounds like Sarin. And yeah, that religious festival was started at the end of October, so just the same time with Halloween we celebrate. And yeah, that's the darker half. But the good news is for us is that we're in a southern hemisphere, so it's coming into the light half of the year for us. So that's a good, I guess, in some way. We're coming into summer, so it's the opposite down here.
Upside down world in New Zealand.
Yes, upside down world.
Christmas is summertime.
So with I think the yang to the yin. So going to introduce my other guests here. So we'll start off of introducing Gorgon. Do you mind introducing yourself?
Right. Well, that's a very informative introduction, Simon. I learned a lot from that. Didn't know the origin of it. But anyway, listener, my name is Gorgon. I'm a professional counselor in New Zealand. I enjoy lots of geeky stuff. Over to you.
Yeah, thanks, Simon, for that little intro. And my name's Alex. I'm a game developer, and today I'm wearing a big silver H on my head. Anyone who watched TV in the 90s might know me as Rimmer from Red Dwarf, and that's who I'm dressed as for our cosplay episode.
Well, I forgot to introduce my cosplay. I must be in dreaming mode right now. So anyway, I'm wearing a black cap and holding a Pokeball, and because we're doing on the video chat, my background is the Galarian city. So I'm cosplaying as a Pokemon trainer.
Oh, cool.
And I also didn't mention what I'm cosplaying, and this obviously goes with the Halloween, but I'm sort of not dressed up as, but I've got an Escanor t-shirt, and I've also got my Mo. And
it's a slightly pedophilic mode. Who's listening, if you know what I mean.
What Mo's not, though? That's the thing.
It's just the early phase, where it's kind of looks sort of semi-painted on, where it's
early sign.
Yeah, to be honest, his one is quite not like a slug, basically. So I don't quite have that. So yeah, I'm dressed up at Escanor, and we're sort of going with a Halloween tradition of cosplaying and dressing up into a costume, which brings into sort of a question: is what is cosplay, and where did it sort of originate from? So it all depending on what you think is cosplay. So is the general modern, see quotation marks, is cosplay. I would say it's so cosplay is a portmanteau, so it's a combining of two words, so costume and play. And it's technically originated from the 1970s the Japanese manga, I think, convention. And that's sort of what it started off. Wasn't quite as cosplay, but then it sort of started off sort of fan fiction aspect.
Is that how you pronounce? I've always thought that word was manga. Is it pronounced manga?
No, it's manga.
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 Okay, not manga. Okay, cool.
Manga. Yeah, that's a silent N. What a spy.
I like manga. It sounds very Kiwi.
Yeah. So I was going to say you can call it whatever you want, but I don't know if that's a bit disrespectful or not. I don't know.
Yeah.
Yeah. So that's why we're sort of dressed up in the tradition of, I guess, Halloween, of going into the other half of the year, basically. So we're enacting putting ourselves in another persona, in another costume. In another person's or another character's shoes. So, as for me,
plus we're going to go out and get some sweeties on the street, right?
With a van?
Yeah, the van.
Oh no! We have to steer away from that conversation now.
A bunch of adult men knocking on the door.
No.
Trick or treat.
Well, actually, my costume, who I am today, Escanor. He's you can see in the background. For the listeners, he's a very muscular, quite a muscular man who's got basically everything going for him. But there's other side from at night time. He's a real scared, quite thin, quite frightened person. So I can imagine if he went Halloween, he would be actually quite scared to go out. So he wouldn't actually join you guys. He'd be too afraid.
That's interesting. Well, you need to accompany him then.
So only during the daytime. So yeah. So should we go a bit of a background of our characters? So should we start with Gorgon? So do you want to tell us a bit about your character?
Yeah, before I do that, I'm very curious because I haven't really done a cosplay before. Have any one of you done cosplaying before, or putting on costumes and doing the Halloween party or whatever? Have you guys experienced that before?
Yeah. I used to dress up for a lot of parties here in Auckland in my 20s and early 30s. Yeah, and they would always be themed. I remember one thing, we did this one very controversial, no, it wasn't controversial, but some of the costumes were controversial theme that was prejudice, or was it? Yeah, it was prejudice or something like this. And so everyone kind of came as these, these ideas of bias and prejudice. And it was like, we had some interesting discussions and costumes at the party, actually. Yeah. Mm-hmm. And then I've also lived in London, and in London I've been to a lot of freaky parties and dressed up as like Pan the god, this half goat, half man, and stuff like this. So yeah, painted myself gold, and yeah, I enjoy this. It's really fun. It always allows me to. I think I really like attention, so I like to sort of prance around in my costume and get attention from people at the same time. Yeah,
especially if you put a lot of effort into the costume as well.
Yeah, that makes a big difference. Yeah. It's not, I never go budget costume, like it's always, I never look like I've just been to Farmers or whatever department store to buy my costume for $20. I always make a good effort. Yeah.
That's cool. That's cool.
And it's probably similar to Alex, probably not to that scale, but I've never been to a convention, but there's always like a dress up party. Or like Halloween.
Okay.
And I was probably generally at the start more the generic one. So if Alex probably saw me on the street, he'll probably roll his eyes. But then when I got a bit older, then I was like, I want to, try something out.
Well, hang on. What's a generic Halloween costume? What would that be? Like?
Batman, Spider-Man, just that one suit kind of,
right.
spandex.
Okay, yeah. Like so, superhero,
or like a witch hat, So that's my experience. I actually had really quite funny experience going to people's doors. It's just quite funny. Just imagine that you're going to people's doors, and I was like the younger of my two older brothers, but they were still about 10 or so. So we would still go to people's doors and knock on, and then ask them middle of like space, sometimes middle of nowhere. We just wandered off quite a bit from our house. So it was always quite strange to think of that. The random people you come across. But yeah, that's mainly my experience. But I've never been to a convention. I would love to go to a convention. I've heard it's very different than actually Halloween. But it's still, I guess, wearing that costume, you're still enacting that sort of that character you are. You're playing that character, especially if, for example, if it's like a ghost, you'll be the ghost sort of character or something. Yeah.
Yeah, well, that's a lot of fun. Thanks for sharing that. I've been to convention, but I will save that story for later when we talk about something else. I've been to some convention in Malaysia. Yeah.
But not as
Cosplay.
not cosplay.
No,
Okay.
no. And I went there as a photographer.
I didn't go there as a streaker.
So this.
So which is worse, me or the guy?
But anyway, my character as
stuff.
Pokemon. But yeah, we'll talk about that later. But I'm dressing up as Pokemon trainer. I think there's a lot of reason why I picked this character. To start with, is because it's the easiest costume that I can get during lockdown. Because initially I wanted to go for, night where I can, purchase some kind of shield and armor and helm.
Make a chainmail.
Yeah, well, yeah. I mean, if if I can, that would be cool. But no. And the second reason is because I am really into Pokemon. The series. I know that I like Pokemon in the past, but I didn't know that I am so into it until recently, where I started, buying Pokemon trading cards a game, playing Pokemon Unites, one of the mobile games. So the passion has come out, and I liked the concept of, journey. Playing the whole Pokemon town, trying to level up, going through the adversity. So I like the concept of that, having to strategize. And guess that is what, one of the many reasons why I chose to be a Pokemon trainer, which is something that I couldn't do in real life.
But you're not a specific Pokemon trainer. You're just... But so in the video game, you're not a specific one. You're just a player. Is that right?
Well, no. Depending what game which game you play. So every series has its own main, character. But you get to name your own character. So I'm definitely not Ash Ketchum in the series. But the recent game, it lets you customize your own character, so that makes it more customizable. But in the past, it's always been a generic one where the only thing that you can customize is the name.
So if you would name your character who you are today, what would you name yourself?
Well, I always name myself in the past as Gorgon Hope. Or that has always been my gamer tag.
But take away from your name, though. You can't. You can think about this. I'm putting you on the spot, so I might just jump over to Alex. But think of your character's name, because sometimes it's good. That's cosplay. Is that not just a costume? It's not just a physical costume, but it's also that sort of the character. If that makes sense. And then you play through that character. Because right next to you, we've got a guy with a big H on his forehead.
Yeah. So I am dressed up as Rema from the Red Dwarf series, which I used to watch a lot in my 20s. And the reason I chose this character is because he's this how do I describe him? He's a sniveling weasel of a man. Like anyone who's seen this, I think probably agree with that description. He's a prig, like he's this prig, P-R-I-G, which I just looked up the exact definition for. A prig is a self-righteously moralistic person who behaves as if they are superior to others, and that's what Rimmer is like. He sort of swings between being needing sort of fearfully in control and sort of being anxious and annoying. Like he's just this really comically meek character, and I can relate to a lot of his persona, like this need to be in control and living in fear and not making action. So I thought I'd dress up as him tonight as homage.
Uh-huh.
Yeah.
Is he? I'm just trying to relate him. Is he like similar to like Sheldon or something? Like
Sheldon
Cooper.
Yeah, a little bit like Sheldon from what's the name of the show again?
Big Bang, the Big Bang Theory.
Big Bang. Yeah, sorry, mixing up my nerd shows. He a little bit, except Sheldon's quite accomplished, isn't he? He's a physicist or something, isn't he? But then like Rema, on the other hand, is like his existence, his sole existence, his sole purpose is to exist, is to be a holographic companion to the last human being in the universe. So like, and he hasn't accomplished anything other than that. Like, he's got no backbone and he's got no ambition, and like, he's just really funny. But he is a companion to Lister. Yeah,
but he's a hologram.
He's also a hologram. Yeah. So he cannot directly interact with people until at some point I think they needed to flesh out his character a bit more. So they gave him this thing called a hard light drive, which made it possible for him to interact with the physical world.
Nice.
But it sounds like he'd be quite an annoying to sort of character. But you're laughing. Is he quite funny as well?
He's hilarious because. I mean, I can. What I could do is, if you guys are open to it, I can sort of act in his character throughout the show, so you get a taste of what he's like. Like he's sort of anal retentive and and fearful. Yeah, we'll see how it goes. Eh?
Yeah,
are you guys open to it?
Yeah,
in the spirit of cosplay. Do it.
I should have warned. He's quite critical as well. He's quite a critical character. So,
Bring it on.
Oh, let's do this. This is good. As long as you are happy for us to just hold judgment over you after this. That's literally the opposite of what ideally was cosplay. But thanks for that, Alex. You can, or wait, how do I say your name?
Rimmer.
Rimmer,
R-I-M-M-E-R. Yeah.
Rimmer. So I'll start calling you Rimmer then. And the H means hologram. Is that why he's got an H on his forehead?
Yeah, exactly. Yeah, it's to identify him as, I guess, to remind the viewers that he's holographic and can't interact with anyone. Yeah. Anyway, so it's these stupid salutes like this.
I see.
He's real funny. Yeah, everything's by the book. He can't break any rules. Yeah, he's hilarious. So
it's almost he's programmed to it. That's
yeah, exactly. Yeah.
And for me, for the viewers or the listeners, Escanor. So that's who I'm sort of somewhat dressed up with.
Wait. Sorry, hang on a minute. Are we gonna see Rema in action? Or is it after that?
In
conversation, he'll come.
In conversation,
okay.
Yeah.
Thank you for filling me in. Okay, all right.
I've got nothing scripted. It's going to be a method. It's just going to come out when it comes out.
Sorry, I was confused. Sorry, Simon.
Don't get offended.
Okay.
So that's the perfect opportunity for Rema to correct him or something, to say something back to him, right?
Yeah. Okay. All right.
I was just trying to give you some ammunition there, Rema.
It's okay. I got my Blastoise here to protect me.
Okie dokie.
And as for me, so back to Escanor. So he's a two-sided character. So there's black and white. So I thought it'd be quite fitting, especially the introduction about Halloween, the first half and the second half. So that's just like Escanor. He's sin of pride. So that they have seven deadly sins, and he gets his power from the sun. So he's basically the sun is like, especially in the archetypal folklores and mythology, is that's the ultimate power. It's the where we draw life from, but we also have to be afraid because it's fire. So when he comes up and he's the strongest at noon, so that's the 12 o'clock, he's the guy behind me. Basically, no one in the I guess the story, even when there's big bosses right at the end, or the demon god, no one can beat him for 1 minute. The type of the highest time. So he's very, but he's very, because it's pride. He's very arrogant. He's very prideful. So he this picture is this guy here on the right. Anyone comes up to him, they freeze. If they have any animosity towards them, they can't move. But he's fine. He just walks straight up to him because he said, "Why would I be afraid of someone who's beneath me?" So he's very, his language is very prideful, but he's not. They find a good balance between arrogance and pride, because he backs it up as well. So that's one side of him, and other side of him is when the night comes out, he's very anxious, very scared, and hides behind things. Over time, he develops confidence, so he can just sort of come out just normally. But when the sun goes, he becomes almost a polar opposite. So if you want, I could sort of play a bit of Escanor back at Remen and see where that takes us.
I'll tell you what I took away from that is that Escanor is a smarmy git.
He would, yeah. I wonder what his response would be. He wouldn't even bother to listen to it. He'd be, you're beneath me.
Yeah, one of Remen's strengths is not his self-awareness. So he would definitely project onto anyone who had his own weaknesses, like pride.
Yeah. So I guess that's the layers, I guess, of playing this role. So about cosplay, I was thinking of the question, because we talk about cosplay and we're dressing up these characters. I mentioned earlier about that it's 1970s. I would like to say, has it even been around even longer than that? Is because I can imagine even people wearing costumes since in ancient days, even the masquerade balls. They would wear a masquerade, a face and a costume. So it seems like it's been there for human history for some time. I wonder what you guys think about that. The different.
Yeah, and did Halloween or Hallows Eve have its roots in paganism as well?
Yeah, there's that one I mentioned earlier.
Yeah.
Yeah. So it's that wearing a costume and that playfulness and enacting that character. And I can imagine even this is not meaning demeaning in any way, but even as a child, they sort of encourage you to do like dress up, or to dress up as your hero or whatever it might be. You can even dress up as in a dress or so forth. So it's that sort of, I like to see it as that sort of innate human behavior able to express itself.
My brother's 2-year-old son. My brother sends a lot of video recordings of his children, and a recent one was of his 2-year-old son saying, "Oh, I can't remember." There was some question, and then the little boy said, because he's got a sister, he's looking at his sister. He said, "I want to wear a dress." and
Cute.
I think the question was like, "How do you want to dress up today?" And he said, "Yeah, I want to wear a dress." And, okay, then do it. Go ahead.
Because for them, it's just another piece of clothing. It hasn't had that discourse, social discourse.
Have any stigma about it for them. Yeah, it's great. Yeah.
How do you see the sort of the cosplay, Gorgon? How do you sort of see it? Is it?
Well, I think because you mentioned that the cosplay is a combination of word of costume and play. And I do see the elements and traits of plays and wearing a costumes and in acting or in the past, but I do want. This is, I guess, for my understanding is I think I want to use the word cosplay, at least for my understanding, really sticking to the original word that it was intentionally being used in the Japanese culture, as cosplay, because that itself has a spirit of playing a character that is relatable to the cosplayer in spirit, in the morale, in the demeanor, and the meaning of it that it brings to that person. Because I think for them, it's not purely just dressing up. It's the encompasses the whole spirit of the character. And with that, yeah, I see elements of overlapping with between costume plays and whatnot, but I do want to point out that the word cosplay, and I know a lot of cosplayers, they take it very seriously, because so just want to acknowledge that, and I do see them, yeah, that's the similar element, but at the same time, cosplay itself is a very specific to that culture. It has its own element in there. Yeah, so that's my view on cosplaying.
I think that's quite accurate, and that's that fandom, following that fandom. And it's not just a character, but it's also the whole sort of the world it becomes with, like whole Pokemon, that world of
Yeah.
Pokemon. And you can't, you sort of have to perform or act accurately as well. If you go into the Star Wars world, you sort of have to have a bit of an idea about it. You have to, exactly. So Gorgon just did Star Trek, which is different.
Symbol.
Yes.
Yeah, I will get bash up in a Star Wars convention.
Yeah, you'd get a few lightsabers your way. That's for
Yeah,
sure.
well, that's true.
Yeah.
So
With that, I agree. Is that you can sort of find areas like we can do Halloween and all that, but I guess how it's generally used, it's more the fandom side of things. But it's not. From my understanding, it's not just tied to Japanese culture though. It's tied to Western as well.
yeah, it does, but it does, the word cosplay does originally come from Japanese, and then just spread towards the comic cons and whatnot. In the
I'd be
Western world.
curious to know. I would, after this, I'll do some googling. I'd be curious to know how cosplay coming from Japan, how it relates to this culture of sexuality there, because I know they have in Japan. There's a lot of repression of sexuality, and I got thinking about role playing, and I was thinking about the link between the two there.
This is just a rhetorical, is it called rhetorical? Don't know if I use the word correctly or not, but anecdotal kind of knowledge that I've read from here and there. Okay, sorry. I think a better word to describe that is my observation. That even though in Japan the sexuality and whatnot is quite repressed, but in terms of their printed media, they are actually quite out there for some reason. So I'm interested in knowing that too. So if you found any interesting information and resources, please send it to us. I'm interested to read it.
I'll definitely send you some Japanese sexuality resources.
I mean, articles.
No, I think I know what you mean. I'm guessing what part of what you're saying is about the how the repression, some of the regulatory repression has created these kind of niche things like hentai, etc. Not niche, but you know what I mean, like different.
Especially how you mentioned, Alex, connects with role playing, and then that's a big part of cosplay, but it's also a big part of other areas as well that sort of come into cosplay a bit.
And crossplay.
I was going to ask you, probably, Alex, your experience of cosplay, your sort of understanding of cosplay, because it was quite interesting to dig up about that. your experience with it? Yeah.
Yeah, well, I haven't been to any cosplay conventions, so to speak, but I've been to Burning Man parties in London, for example. Um, I've organised parties here in Auckland where we always had some theme or another, and people went all in. I've seen people dressed up as entire buildings coming to our parties and things like this. Like, yeah,
Cool.
it was really cool. So. I know I knew that every time we would organize one of those parties that it was we'd have to give lots of notice because people would get really into it and we'd go really into their costumes. So we'd have to give at least 6 weeks, preferably more, to make sure that people had time to think about and plan and design their costumes. But yeah, it was always really really beautiful to see what people had come up with. I remember one of my favorite costumes was actually pretty easy and pretty relatively simple to do, but I dressed up as the Joker from like Heath Ledger's Joker from Batman The Dark Knight, and yeah, I really enjoyed playing that character for the night, this hedonistic kind of off the rails lunatic, and I think I did have a lot of fun that night playing as that character. So yeah, I like these opportunities to explore my edges. That's how I think about cosplay quite often. It's like getting into character and exploring my edge. Yeah.
Yeah, it's even like when you mentioned about playing the Joker, like how often do we get to play the villain? How often can we safely play the villain in a safe sort of environment? And even I find villains are probably more complex than the heroes. They have a lot of actual backstory, and you can sort of enact the aspects of yourself you're not able to express.
Yeah. That's very cool for that. Yeah. Yeah, and then I guess I would add to that as time went on, the costumes I was wearing became less about copying, less about copying pop culture, figures or characters, etc., but and more of my own creative expression. So, yeah, I mean, like I said earlier, in one party I went to, I just painted my entire body gold and. It was just a cool looking costume. Just looked cool. Yeah.
This is artistic, the creative side of you to really express that through creating your own costume. Cool.
Yeah, and I think that's probably a side effect. I knew a few people who were proper cosplayers. Like one guy came to a party I went to while I was working for a big games company in London, and he came dressed as Hellboy, like really dressed as Hellboy, like had the horns on his head and had made his own gun and was entirely painted red. And I was like, holy moly, like it's just incredible. And I'm guessing that those people who, if they continue to do it, would probably get more and more creative in their expression as well.
So it's more than just performing or acting or role playing. It's that creation. It's that even the crafting. So the master's you master how to make that costume.
Yeah.
That's why they need at least 6 weeks.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah. I was just thinking as well, BronyCon. I don't know if BronyCon still exists, but I do know some people who go to BronyCon, and like that is that's a gathering of like-minded people, and it's also incredible costume design you see coming out of that. It's amazing.
Talking about very good handmade homebrew costume. A lot of time, a lot of these Comic Cons or these cosplaying cons, they have an element of competition in there.
Yeah, that's true. Yeah. Yep. Yeah, I heard about what do they call it? At BronyCon, they had like basically a runway kind of a model off at the to accommodate the convention. Yeah. So they'd have to kind of all strut the runway and pose their characters and
really? Did they have to walk the model walk? Did they have to do the same walk?
Well, they had to do whatever. Yeah, I think they would do whatever the character or whatever they
Oh.
felt like expressing. Yeah, yeah.
Yeah, no, definitely. I've have the privilege to watch that competition. Well, not the BrahmaCon that Alex mentioned, but the cosplaying. I forgot what it's being called in Malaysia. It's not a very big one. It's a medium sized one. I got the privilege to watch it, and what interesting is there will be cosplayers who cosplay as maybe Goku from Dragon Balls, and maybe two of them dress as Goku, and the competition is really who actually get the essence of Goku more. And and when they just go wild on the stage, yes, it's just plain fun to be in that
Yeah.
environment.
Oh, wicked, eh? Yeah.
Mhm.
Yeah.
So who's can role play the character the most accurate?
Yeah, exactly. Like, who can bring out the spirit of Goku in some sense? Yeah.
It's true. Like it is the spirit of the character, isn't it? And then what we mentioned before is that it's not just you yourself, but it's a whole convention. It's a whole sort of strangers all coming together as a collective, and ideally in a safe, non-judgmental environment, so you can sort of express yourself. Yes, yeah.
Yeah. So, question. Why do you think all these comic cons and this cosplaying cons make it a safe environment for people to do cosplaying?
I think a big part of it is being surrounded by your people. So you meet other like-minded people there. You probably form some relationships and get all enthused about the next one, and form social groups online to prepare for that. Yeah, I think that's a big part of it.
And even big part of cosplay conventions, you're just not just walking around an empty warehouse. You're going around and actually going into those areas. Ideally, your sort of character might be out there displayed in an anime or a manga or whatever it might be, a video game. There's also the I guess the people, the industry, or the businesses are there sort of selling and promoting their product as well. So they sort of want that sort of space. I can imagine that you can be these characters I sort of draw or I make without any judgment, like, and then bring friends along and so forth. And yeah, it gets me wondering, why do you think people really like cosplay? Why do people even do cosplay?
I can start that off. I think we've mentioned it, touch and go throughout the whole episode. That the spirit of the character that we are cosplaying. I think because a lot of time we relate to character that we watched or that we exposed to in medias and whatnot, and somehow this is my theory anyway, that we either could see part of ourselves in that character, and or we would like to see ourselves displaying some of the behavior and character of the character. There's a lot of redundancy there, but but it's a chance for people to role play. Like take me for example, I'm cosplaying as a Pokemon trainer today, and part of the things that I really like about the franchise is the courage to adventure. I myself, I would say that I'm not I'm not a big adventurer in real life, but I do enjoy the concept that I can go on an adventure, boost my confidence, and that helps. And I think for most part, there is this confidence building and achievement that's being done when someone cosplay. This is just one of the many other traits. Yeah. What were you
Sounds like
guys?
you're also saying that they're part of cosplaying is trying on the costume for perhaps the unexplored parts of your personality.
Yes, yes,
Yeah.
yes. It can be that.
Unexplored and body explored, you might see aspects of it, and then you might play it out. But yeah, it's sort of both of them. And sounds like Gorgon is almost like your physically placing yourself as into the hero's shoes.
Yeah, like literally. I mean, air
Yeah.
quotes.
So not just by controller or reading a magazine or watching off a TV, but you're now going out, choosing a character, choosing the outfit, making them maybe the outfit, connecting with people to make the outfit. Then not only that, but then organizing the time to maybe to wear this outfit with your friends. So socializing of that aspect as well. So you can sort of be a hero alongside of your friends who are also being a hero.
Yeah.
Maybe
Yeah.
villain.
Yeah. So you're saying that there's the social element in that as well. That you're not alone.
So I would say I haven't been cosplay conventions, but I would say majority of them would go with someone else.
Yes. Well, yeah. Definitely. I'll make friends there.
Yeah.
It looks like you're in deep thought, Alex.
Yeah. Yeah, it's just I was just remembering some anecdotes from a friend who went to BronyCon. Yeah, on what you just said, majority of people would go to cosplay convention by themselves. Yes, and I imagine as well there are others like myself who enjoyed the anonymity of going to some parties and events alone. And I really enjoyed that in London because I think I wanted to explore a lot of my personality that was left unexplored up until I was there, around my sexuality and confidence and dance and all these sorts of things. And so I went to a lot of these groups and events alone, and that was really comforting to know that at first, at least, that I didn't have to see these people ever again if I didn't want to. But of course, I stayed and formed relationships. So, yeah.
And that's all go back to what we mentioned is that you need that safe environment to do that. Yeah. Like if you're going to go there first time and they're going to, "Ooh, what are you doing?" or "Oh my gosh," and maybe dismiss, then that's going to ruin your chance to come back again.
So essentially, it's the norm of the convention that is okay to be the weird ones or the extraordinary one than the normal world.
Yep.
Normal world. Echoes again.
It's like the other world, the underworld. It's norm to be a character from a fictional story. If anything, it'd be the abnormal people who just wear just a t-shirt and shorts. Yeah.
And it does brings out the not the needs, but the whole concept of belongingness. That this is my group, this is my in group, the basic human one of the human needs or desires to be belong to some sort of groups or I guess an identity. I think that plays a big role in people's whether it's consciously or unconsciously a decision of cosplaying.
Yeah, I would, depending on the person, but I would say like it's that bigger step of connecting to that community because it's easy to do it online. It's easy to do it in the safety of your house and behind a screen or behind a avatar, but to organize and prep yourself for an event and then purchase or craft or choose a character, then purchase or craft whatever it might be for your character, and then go out in front of strangers with your friends. That'd be even a bigger step, but you can really see other people in your community face to face, or even find people you don't know exist as well. So it's also building community.
Yeah, the connection.
And connections with people you may not be able to in that level online. So and some people it's easy, some people it takes a lot of courage. Yeah
I just want to add, having worked in game dev, there were some awesome cosplayers there, and I think one of my favorites was a friend who was they were exploring their personality, and they dressed up as Bayonetta for one of our gatherings, and it was like, oh yeah, and it was amazing. Like they put so much effort into this
Wow.
costume, like building the shoes from like buying some shoes and modifying them and everything. It was incredible.
Wow.
Yeah.
So that sounds like it's a part of the journey as well, to exploring the identity, building everything from scratch, and to actually being in that costume. It's really an experience and a journey that you can experiment with what is it like to be that character.
Yeah, push boundaries, push your own boundaries, and learn to trust. Yeah, trust that you can handle the response. Yeah.
I can imagine it will require a lot of trust. Like, am I acting appropriately? Am I acting how this character should be? Like, I can imagine some gatekeeping as well, and the trust that I'm going to get accepted as this character, not just judged, but if I'm playing this character properly, or is my costume up to standard?
Yeah.
There'd be that aspect as well to balance. But with this, I'm also thinking of what do you guys think the stigmas are out there about cosplay? That because there's also a lot of stigmas that follow that as well.
Stigma around cosplay. Well, I guess the first thing that comes to my head is seen as a geeky interest. Still relatively niche. I don't necessarily judge that as a bad thing, but I guess that would be one thing from the mainstream.
Yeah, I do hear people commenting on people who cosplay, especially if you are an adult, 30 plus and above, that aren't you too old to cosplay?
Yeah, but when else are you going to be able to afford all that, all that design and costume?
I know exactly.
Yeah.
But yeah, so that's probably a stigma around that. It's for young people. It's only for playing. It's childish. There can be the stigma around. A majority of people who don't maybe not accustomed or as used to seeing cosplayer in real life.
So, brings me back to what I mentioned earlier as a child when you wear sort of costumes and play, and they say that's the best time to learn and to gauge and to build social skills, build human sort of development kind of skills is actually through play. But that discourse is still there, is that, oh, you haven't grown up, oh, these people sort of held back, they need to start acting more mature. And that sort of stigma is sort of there, and I think it's at least for me, it's sort of innately there, but it's myself as well, and maybe even a profession, maybe like even Alex was saying, some professions might allow that, might be sort of open-minded to it, but other professions, I don't know, if like working in construction, or even for us working in a serious kind of job, mental health. Oh, you cosplay, that's sort of like, oh, aren't you? So maybe it's more for arty people, but come on, there's that sort of discourse there as well.
Yeah, and I think there's always a stigma against some minority group, and cosplayers are another minority group, and they're a creative bunch as well. I think with all of those groups, one of the advantages of being stigmatized is it becomes an exclusive group, which on one hand is a good thing. You get to meet your people and only your people.
Yeah, that's a privileged one.
Privileged group.
Yeah, exactly. And I guess this is why this podcast exists in the first place, is to actually break the stereotypes, to really to talk about the concept of play, and we do mention about some of the benefits of why some people do cosplay, and it's really about learning and playing it's a big part of our life. And as an adult, oftentimes we need alibi to play. You're only allowed to play if it's justified. And there's a costume party, or when it's a sports. Then you're allowed to play, or even board games. That because I'm socializing, that's why I'm playing. But if you play for the fun of it, not a lot of people or not everyone can accept the fact that an adult play for fun. So I think cosplay does touch on that too. Sometimes we can just cosplay for fun.
Yeah, structured and celebrated fun. Yeah.
Yes.
Well, it reminds, like you mentioned, people would dress up if they go to maybe a football match or something. Sometimes they get really into that as well. But that's sort of like, oh, that's normal. So it's also how we see it, and we see it in other areas. Like even in Halloween, that's in the sense of play. Like we're going out with children, but a lot of people do it without children as well. And I think I went to the States when Halloween time, and that's a big partying time. They just use that time just to party. And I would say the adults are more into it than the kids. Yeah.
It means more.
Yeah. But different in New Zealand, I guess. Why do you think this is a random question? Why do you think it's a bit different in the States than it is in New Zealand or different countries?
My guess, to answer that question, my guess is that the Americans in general, I'm massively generalizing here, are more practiced and better at self-expression and confident at speaking out. Whereas in New Zealand, we have a culture which, in some respects, is the opposite, more humble. That's all I need to say.
Poppy. Yeah.
Part of that. Yeah.
What do you notice, Gorgon? Even in your country, Malaysia as well. What do you notice?
Well, I'm just thinking here. It's been so long since I've back in Malaysia. Sorry, but I think
and you're just thinking about food, aren't you?
Yeah, like nasi lemak. But on a serious note, on topic note, I think it's also part of the you are a grown up, don't play. If you are a high school, you know what, it's okay. You will grow out of this phase. I think that's most of, as I'm growing up anyway, that's how the culture is in Malaysia. You especially if you're a male in Malaysia, and a working adult male, your job is to work, earn money, provide for the family. Why are you wasting time playing here? Or wasting time and money on preparing your own cosplaying gadgets and whatnot. So it's not that big, and not as celebrated. And we don't have Halloween, and it's not.
I was going to ask that.
Yeah, it's not a Malaysian I guess festival. Yes, to celebrate.
Lemak, so you can't have everything.
Well, I got nasi lemak, and I got the others public holidays.
Take a wreck.
Yeah.
What about for the do people do like parties with they dress up as a costume or something, or do they do anything similar to that, or?
Yeah, it really depends on where you are at. Because if those who are more exposed to the Western media, then they might have their own private party. Just okay, it's a team party. Let's dress up as, I don't know, superheroes, that sort of things. Yeah. So it's not white. Yeah, it's a bit different.
Do you, again, generalizing about a country. I'm about to generalize about a country I haven't even been to yet. Like the Japanese, is there a work hard and drink hard culture in Malaysia?
Well, again, I can only speak on. Well, that's the thing. There's always have few different extreme stuff. There's people who work hard and play hard.
Yeah.
But there's also people who are just work hard.
Okay.
Yeah. And I think I mentioned it in the past podcast as well, especially if you're a working adult. You're expected to work overtime without pay. So by the time you by the time you finish working, we just want to rest at home, scroll our phones and sleeps. Some with families. Yeah, so definitely there are a group of people who do work hard, play hard, but a majority of people might not have the energy to actually play hard.
I'm going to see if I can tie that into cosplay. And I'm just going to throw out this fishing rod and fishing line and see if I can catch anything. But it almost relates to like you have your different personas, how young or different masks we sort of wear in that sort of theatre. And I know that's quite different what we mentioned about cosplay, but I can imagine the person who's working hard will sort of play out a sort of character either with their colleagues or their boss. But when they get home, it'll be quite a different person, a different character. So there's that sort of connection to cosplay too. But cosplay is more that intentional fandom kind of character, while this sort of work environment is more it's work. It's not really creating something. Yeah.
Interesting point that you your fish hook being true at that, because I can tell you a personal story of mine that cosplay, in the spirit of cosplay, that the whole thing of acting out and being embedded of that character has definitely a part of I guess it's part of my life as well, in a sense where the confidence bit, because I don't cosplay that much, but if I do cosplay and I have all the infinite money and whatever, I do I do want to cosplay as a White Ranger from the original series of Power Ranger, Tommy, and the thing is, when I feel down and had a bad day or I'm afraid, I always think myself as, okay, I'm Tommy, the White Ranger. I can do this. And that itself, I'm sure if I have the helmet of the White Tiger in me, that the whole feeling will intensify if I'm in the pose and if I have owned the whole costume. And that is I think in RPG term is called the characters bleeding into the player, or in this case me. So that's an interesting I don't know, projection of feelings there as well.
I just had a real rimmer thought about that as well. The White Ranger has to have the most impractical costume of all of the of all of the Power Rangers. I mean, there's a reason people don't wear white jeans anymore.
Yeah,
Two. One because they went out of fashion, but two because they have to wash them every 5 minutes.
Yeah, I used to have a white jeans. I wear it once. That's it.
I wonder what will happen if it
A
rains.
burrito, and it was all over.
Yeah. Sorry,
If it
Simon.
rain, I was wondering if what would happen if it start raining.
Yeah, just you can see everything.
my arch nemesis raining.
Sorry, gotta go.
But it's interesting you mentioned that, because no, I don't have any studies here, but this is what I've heard, and sort of I remember reading up is that sort of they've done research about people imagining themselves as their character, as their hero, and that really does boost that confidence. It really does. Even I think it was around bullying or something. Them imagining their hero, and that allowed them, because big part of bullying is mannerism. So they would walk around with their head down and their shoulders down, hunched, and they would attract sort of people who might call out for them or might sort of pick on them because it's sort of an easy target. And this, I think, this is old sort of information, and they sort of the therapists work with them, sort of putting themselves in the hero's shoes, and then when they ever see these people enact that person, so they started walking around with their chest up, their chin high, and sort of like a stern look. And over time, they didn't get these call outs. They sort of felt quite confident. They physically felt more able just by changing their stance. And by changing their stance was them believing themselves in that, being that hero. So it might sound a bit like, oh, that's a bit funny, but actually is very real, and especially can really enact that confidence or that booster. Yeah.
Right. Yeah, and I remember for two long periods of my life having practiced martial arts. The first was judo, and the second was hapkido, and remembering how much confidence that gave me, in my physique, for whatever you want to call it, and psychologically as well. Like it was, yeah. So I think, yeah, I definitely. The second time I got into martial arts, I chose Hapkido because it was Scorpion's martial art from Mortal Kombat 6 or Mortal Kombat 5, maybe. And yeah, I went with it for years. It was really good for me.
So that's interesting. I didn't think of that. So even sort of the act of cosplay, role playing, could get you into something like martial arts.
Yeah, yeah, exactly. Yeah,
Yeah.
It's the relatability of it, the connection.
yeah. Well, there were just so many to choose from, and I thought, well, what would Scorpion do?
What would Jesus do? What would
Scorpion? WWSD.
It's just as bad as what would Tyler Durden do. Yeah, what would Scorpion do? He would fire a thing and rip someone's heart out. What's it called? That thing comes out of his hand?
Yeah. Venom. Is that what you're talking about?
No, Scorpion.
Oh, Scorpion. Yeah. Sorry. Yeah, the spear. Yeah. Well, that's an interesting point, isn't it? Like, a lot of kids who are bullied probably haven't acted on or explored a lot of their shadow because they're kind of meek and maybe fragile and shy, etc. So what the idea of exploring a villain as as something to hold is probably somewhat helpful.
And that's Oh, thank that I think that's a therapeutic element in there as well. That I remember using some of not cosplaying per se, but role playing as the character that my clients they really either have a high respect to or as a model. Like if this character of this movie is in the scenario right now, how would he respond to the bully? How would he respond when this comment is said to him? And I think practice. The first time it'll be, can't really say it out. But the more he try, the more they are into the character, the more they can feel that, hey, I can do this. Because even though I'm speaking through the lens of Darth Vader, but I'm the one who is doing that.
Yeah. Journey-wise, it's a real shortcut, isn't it? Because the villains never have to go through a hero's journey to get there. They just start being villains. Like, straight into it. You don't have to be called. You don't have to go to your
Well,
ashes.
technically, they say, well, if you go into it, is that the villains are the failed heroes.
Yeah, okay. Yeah.
So the sour thing.
Yeah, I like the quote from The Dark Knight though. Who's his name? Two-Face?
Yes, yep.
Yeah, I think he said something along the line of it's either you die a hero or you become a villain yourself.
You live long enough to become the villain or something. Yeah.
Yeah.
I think did we mention that in one of the first podcasts about black and white thinking? Because that's very black and white thinking. Like, what about the spectators? What about the sidekick? What about
Yeah, that's true. Well,
and there is there in therapy world there is validity in testing the opposites, isn't there? If you're always shy, there's a lot of therapists would encourage you to at least explore in the room the opposite express, be confident, try those things as awkward as they might feel. Yeah.
Like we mentioned previously in this conversation about playing the villain, able to play them in, especially there's parts where the villain can play what the hero can't, and maybe this person needs to play a bit of that aspect.
I'm coming up with a new organization. It's called Villain Therapy.
Okay. Do you accept new researcher?
Do I accept what?
Do you accept members?
Oh yeah, there'll be an accredited course up tomorrow. Yeah.
Okay. All right.
It's going to cost you $5,000.
All right. Be sure to sign up, guys.
Yeah. Well, actually, if anyone needs therapy, it's the villain, right?
Yeah.
So why isn't it there?
Well, villain. Well, anyway, but on the same serious note, in the US, there's this thing called a superhero therapy.
Yeah. Okay.
Yeah.
Did you know? Now it's not pronounced this way, but it's spelt this way. Did you know there's Vegito therapy?
Vegito.
Fajita? Or which language are we speaking?
Vegito is sort of it's called Vegito, but I say Vegito, and it's a character of Dragon Ball Z. It's Goku.
Okay.
It's Goku and so the main character who's listening is Goku, and he's fused in with Vegeta. Yeah.
Right. The whole.
Yep. So there's Vegeta therapy.
Stance. Okay.
But,
right, I've got another Rimmer thought. How are we doing for time, Simon?
We're heading there, basically.
Cool.
Yeah, I think we're aiming for 59 minutes and 59 seconds. No, but yeah. Do you want me to wrap it up, or do one of you guys want to wrap it up?
Go ahead, Simon. You wrap it up.
Gorgon, you about to say something?
No. Yeah, go ahead.
Well, first of all, thank for you guys for this conversation. It's enjoyable, especially aspects of your life, and especially how we studied that sort of the shadow side of things, but also why people cosplay and what is cosplay. And I did like to hear sort of the perspectives of it. It's quite interesting. Hopefully the person listening or people listening in has got some questions and send them through, or any areas to look up, especially even around the Halloween. It's quite some interesting facts out there. But yeah, I appreciate you guys. And it was a good another conversation, and that's 2.5 therapists. So do you guys have anything to say before we go?
Just that you're a couple of smegheads.
And remember to subscribe to our channel.
Okay. All right. Thank you. Cool.